All right, welcome back to God-Free Bible Study. This is your boy, Adam of NOLA. This is my channel, Skepticus. And today we are going through more chapters in Numbers. If you've been following along, the Israelites are still in the desert, still in the wilderness. They're always in the wilderness on some level or another. And they're still going at it, although they have started attacking neighboring nations and neighboring tribes. So, yay warfare, and yay for the coming genocides. That's always a lot of fun. We're starting in at Numbers 22. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but we are starting on one of my favorite chapters in the entire Bible. And when I say favorite, you know I don't mean because it's the most beautiful, flowing, logical, awesome chapter in the whole Bible. It's because it's really interesting. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but we'll just dive in. The last thing I'll say is that I do have my drink ready. I hope that you do too. Kind of an interesting mix today. I am putting together my Monster with this beautiful bottle that a friend gave me of elderflower rose gin and some fancy cherry syrup kind of stuff. It's surprisingly tasty. And you know, you don't want to be reading the Bible sober. That's just stupid. So, hey, let's all raise one for Yahweh, shall we? So we're going to dive in now to Numbers 22. The heading on this is Balak summons Balaam to curse Israel. The Israelites set out and camped in the plains of Moab across the Jordan from Jericho. Now Balak, son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Moab was in great dread of the people because they were so numerous. Moab was overcome with fear of the Israelites, and Moab said to the elders of Midian, "This horde will now lick up all that is around us, as an ox licks up the grass of the field." Now Balak, son of Zippor, was king of Moab at that time. He sent messengers to Balaam, son of Beor, at Pethor, which is on the Euphrates, in the land of Ammon, to summon him, saying, "A people has come out of Egypt. They have spread over the face of the earth, and they have settled next to me. Come now, curse this people for me, since they are stronger than I. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them from the land. For I know that whomever you bless is blessed, and whomever you curse is cursed." Right away, this is a really interesting narrative to me. This is the first time that we're introduced to Balaam, and you'll see he's quite a curious character for the Bible. But the idea that, oh, there's someone coming, some foreign people, let's go find someone who can put a curse on them. I know that this is some old-timey stuff right here, but maybe you should get to building some defensive positions or creating more weapons or training more soldiers. But no, instead, he's worried about putting a curse on the Israelites. So, okay, he's going to go parley with Balaam. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the fees for divination in their hand, and they came to Balaam and gave him Balak's message. He said to them, "Stay here tonight, and I will bring back word to you, just as the Lord speaks to me." So the officials of Moab stayed with Balaam. God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam said to God, "King Balak, son of Zippor of Moab, has sent me this message. Look, a people has come out of Egypt and has spread over the face of the earth. Now come, curse them for me. Perhaps I shall be able to fight against them and drive them out." God said to Balaam, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed." So Balaam rose in the morning and said to the officials of Balak, "Go to your own land, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." So the officials of Moab rose and went to Balak and said, "Balaam refuses to come with us." So the first part of this passage that just screams out to me as utter weirdness for the Bible is that this person, Balaam, who it says does divination. They brought him a fee for divination. It's not just that they want him to curse the Israelites, but they're going to do this by means of divination. And I bring this up because divination has specifically been brought up as something that is worthy of death in the rules that were laid out to the Israelites in Numbers and Leviticus and Exodus. I can't remember exactly where they're at. I could go back and find them if I had to. They're saying that you cannot allow a witch to live and you cannot allow a sorcerer to live. And it specifically says at one point that you're not allowed to do divination. And yet, here's this dude, like freelance divination dude, I guess, named Balaam, and he talks to God. Now, I understand if you have these guys in the town square that do tarot readings and such, and some of them might get really witchy, and some of them might even claim to talk to a god. But this is the holy text of the Jews, of the Hebrews, of the Israelites, in which the laws have been laid out that divination is bad. You are not to do divination. And yet, this freelance Balaam guy, who apparently has God's own ear, is also one who does divination. Go figure that one out. So there's another part to this passage that I just read that I have never heard another Christian or any Bible study kind of person even dive into. I'm not saying I'm the first person to ever have this thought, but I've never heard this articulated from anyone. Let me read this again. God, Yahweh, said to Balaam, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed." Here's the deal. What difference would it have made if Balaam cursed the Israelites or not? Balaam is talking to God. Why does God care if Balaam curses the Israelites? I mean, it's one thing if I said, hey, I'm going to do something to screw up your fortunes, right? Because presumably you and I are on even ground, so I can probably screw up your fortunes if I wanted to, and you could screw up mine. I could curse you, I could do bad things to you, etc. But this is Balaam talking to God, the omnipotent, the mighty, the Shema. This is Hashem, the name. This is the Almighty God. And yet he is instructing Balaam, yo, don't curse them because they're blessed. Well, if they're blessed by the most high and mighty entity in the entire universe, the one who created the entire universe, then what difference would it make if Balaam cursed them? What if Balaam had not followed God's instructions and had actually cursed the Israelites? Would it have done anything? Would their fortunes have gone sour because Balaam cursed them, even though they had Yahweh himself in their corner? I mean, the fact that Yahweh, God, had to instruct Balaam and say, don't curse them, they're blessed. It seems like a non sequitur to me. Now, you'll see in the narrative here that Balaam doesn't do what I'm suggesting. He doesn't actually curse the Israelites, so we'll never know. But it's very odd that the Almighty God himself has to tell a person that practices divination, yo, don't curse those people. They're my people. If this is God, it shouldn't matter. If it's God, the one true Almighty God, it shouldn't matter if 1,000 warlocks are all cursing the Israelites every day, every hour. They should just march right through it if they are truly blessed by God. So this is on some level a really weird passage to me already, but it's going to get better. Once again, Balak sent officials, more numerous and more distinguished than these. They came to Balaam and said to him, "Thus says Balak, son of Zippor, do not let anything hinder you from coming to me, for I will surely do you great honor, and whatever you say to me, I will do. Come, curse this people for me." But Balaam replied to the servants of Balak, although Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God to do less or more. You also stay here overnight so that I may learn what more the Lord may say to me. That night, God came to Balaam and said to him, if the men have come to summon you, get up and go with them, but do only what I tell you to do. So Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the official of Moab. So Balak really wants this curse. He's coming back to Balaam again. I mean, Balaam must do grade A work. I'm getting this vibe where 10 other times Balak had come to Balaam and said, hey, yo, let me give you some money and curse these people. And Balaam cursed them. And lo and behold, horrible things happened to the people that were cursed. So Balak seems really adamant about getting this curse. So he's coming with more people and with more promises. But Balaam is holding fast and saying, no, I cannot do this. But the weird thing to me is Balaam says to Balak, I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God to do less or more. In other words, he's saying, God will not let me go with you. But he's not explicitly saying to Balak, hey, Yahweh's on their side. Now, you could argue maybe Balaam doesn't really like Balak that much. Maybe he doesn't want to be in the middle of this, but as long as Balak is going to keep sending these people trying to get Balaam to do these curses, and as long as Balaam is talking directly to God, you'd think that Balaam would just cut this whole soap opera short and say, by the way, he's on their side. So y'all should leave or be really nice to the Israelites or something. But he never does that. He does send them away as God tells him to do. And yet he never goes so far as to tell Balak, hey, God is on their side. So that's interesting in and of itself. But also listen carefully. For all of those people who want to harp on this unchanging God who never changes his mind and never goes back on his word and blah, 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 which has already been proven to be absolute bullshit. But in this story, already he has completely reversed himself. After the first night, God said to Balaam, don't go with them, send them away. And Balaam did. And this time, Balak sent more people. And this time, God says to Balaam, if the men have come to summon you, get up and go with them, but do only what I tell you to do. Now, I guess you could argue, if you want to lawyer this, that it's not going back on what he said, because each instance of Balak's people coming to Balaam is its own separate event. But if there is any chance that God would want Balaam to go back to Balak to perform these services, you'd think that he would have covered that the first time, but okay. Nevertheless, God has said to Balaam, go ahead, go. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the officials of Moab. Remember, this is with God's blessing now. I'm hammering this home, and you'll see why if you haven't read this before. I'm going to hammer this home that it says that night, God came to Balaam and said to him, if the men have come to summon you, get up and go with them. So that is what Balaam is doing now, riding his donkey. The next sentence, God's anger was kindled because he was going. What? God's anger was kindled because he was going. Now, I know I've done a bunch of talking here, so I'm going to read this now fluidly without stopping between verses 21 and 22, because you have to hear how this has no flow. It just completely reverses itself with no warning whatsoever. So here, let's go to where God is talking to Balaam. That night, God came to Balaam and said to him, if the men have come to summon you, get up and go with them, but do only what I tell you to do. So Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the officials of Moab. God's anger was kindled because he was going. And the angel of the Lord took his stand in the road as his adversary. Literally, from one sentence to the next, at one sentence, God is saying, go with Balak and his people, but only do what I tell you to do. And then the very next sentence, it says, God's anger was kindled because he was going. This is so reminiscent of the complete idiocy and nonsensical BS that we got in Exodus when God gave Moses on Sinai all of these commands of the things he had to do and all of this plan of how they were going to free the people of Israel. And then literally right after he gets these commands, the next thing we hear is that God decided to kill Moses at some hotel or, inn or whatever on the road. I mean, there was no interjection there. There was no buildup. There was no explanation of how God went from Moses is my chosen dude to I'm going to kill Moses. One of the strangest, dumbest sequences in the entire book. And now we're seeing it again with Balaam. God tells Balaam, okay, go with them. Only do whatever, but do only what I tell you to do. But then a few sentences later, God's anger was kindled because he was going. In other words, God's anger was kindled because Balaam was doing what God told him to do. And the angel of the Lord took his stand in the road as his adversary, as Balaam's adversary. In other words, the angel of the Lord is going to kill Balaam for committing the sin of following God's commands. Now he was riding on the donkey, and his two servants were with him. The donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. So the donkey turned off the road and went into the field. And Balaam struck the donkey to turn it back onto the road. So let me see if I understand what this is telling us. Donkeys apparently can see the angel of the Lord, but people, or at least Balaam, cannot. Remember, it'd be one thing if you said, well, Balaam is just some simpleton who doesn't know what to look for, but this is the dude who has just been confirmed sentences earlier to have the ear of God. He converses with God, and yet for some reason, the donkey can see the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a sword, and Balaam cannot. Balaam is just like, do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do, going to see Balak, do-do-do-do-do, and the donkey can see it. What the hell is up with that? Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards with a wall on either side. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it scraped against the wall and scraped Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck it again. This poor donkey. Then the angel of the Lord went ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. So one of the many things that's just so bizarre about this is, aside from the fact that God has decided to kill Balaam for following his instructions, and beside the fact that the donkey can see the angel of the Lord, but Balaam cannot, also the fact that apparently when God sends the angel of the Lord to assassinate your ass, he doesn't actually come up and make a quick job of it. He has to stand in the road like it's a spaghetti western or something, and we have to have music like like you're riding on your horse, your donkey, and there's this angel of the Lord with a sword waiting for you, and it's like a 20-minute sequence. Apparently the angel of the Lord can't just attack you. If the angel of the Lord has decided to kill you, I guess the way that you can get out of that is just don't go to the angel of the Lord, because this sequence is ridiculous. First, let's see, we have, first the angel of the Lord is standing in the road as Balaam's adversary. Balaam doesn't see it. The donkey turns off the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards with a wall on either side. And when the donkey saw the angel, then the donkey's trying to get away, and the Balaam is just completely clueless. And then finally it says the angel of the Lord went ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. Imagine that you're going to have this old Western shootout, right? At high noon, OK Corral. And, the two guys come out in the main street there, and they're both, like walking towards each other really slowly, and it's all tense, and they're playing the music and the people are watching. And then all of a sudden, one of the guys who's supposed to be in the duel just veers off and goes down the alleyway. And then the other guy circles around so he can get in front of him. And then this guy just veers off again and goes somewhere else. And finally, the guy who wants to shoot him has to corner him in some place that he can't get away in order so he can finally have this shootout in a proper way. I mean, it's so stupid. It's so epically stupid. So finally, the angel of the Lord has essentially cornered the poor donkey. It says, when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it laid down under Balaam. And Balaam's anger was kindled, and he struck the donkey with his staff. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and it said to Balaam, what have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times? Balaam said to the donkey, because you have made a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand. I would kill you right now. But the donkey said to Balaam, am I not your donkey, which you have ridden all your life to this day? Have I been in the habit of treating you this way? And he said, no. Notice as we just move fluidly into this conversation between Balaam and his donkey, and they are having this little back and forth. At no point does Balaam say, why is my donkey talking to me? You think at least Balaam would say, wow, maybe I shouldn't have had that last drink, or maybe I shouldn't put down the mushrooms or something, because apparently none of this strikes Balaam as weird. He's pissed off that his donkey won't keep moving. That's pissing him off, but he's not awestruck in the least that his donkey has turned around and has started a conversation with him, which really makes you wonder what kind of mindset Balaam was in. Also, it's really weird because in the prior passage, God was speaking directly to Balaam. But now, apparently, God decides, I'm going to speak to you by having your donkey turn around and look at you and talk to you like it's Shrek. I mean, if God could speak directly to him before, why is it now he decides to start talking through the donkey? I don't want to go overboard on this, but there is something really scary about this, because if you were to take these verses in a very literal way and say, okay, this is what actually happened, and in the right circumstances, maybe God would call on us to do this. Basically, what you're saying is if an animal ever starts talking to you, you should be completely unsurprised and automatically assume it's God talking to you. How would you like to be one of my advisors? I'm using Skepticus's memberships as a way to allow you to have a voice in the content and the direction of this channel. I hope to see you in the membership pool, and I want to hear your voice in what Skepticus is doing going forward. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed down, falling on his face. The angel of the Lord said to him, why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? I have come out as an adversary because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If it had not turned away from me, surely just now I would have killed you and let it live. Then Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I did not know that you were standing in the road to oppose me. Now therefore, if it is displeasing to you, I will return home. The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but speak only what I tell you to speak." So Balaam went on with the officials of Balak. So it says, after all of this little soap opera, this little showdown at the OK Corral, it says, then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam. Why couldn't he just do that originally? Why couldn't God have just opened his eyes from the beginning so that Balaam would know the angel of the Lord is standing there, like waiting to strike you down? If that's where this was going anyway, couldn't we have just cut to the chase? But no, somebody thought that this made a good story to put in their holy book because this makes so much sense. And then when Balaam's eyes are opened, it says, then Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned, for I did not know that you were standing in the road to oppose me." So many times, this is a common theme we've already hit over and over, but I'm going to keep hammering on it. This idea that I need to atone, or I have sinned, or I'm sorry for something that you couldn't possibly have known. He, according to the holy text itself, did not see the angel of the Lord. He had no idea that the angel of the Lord was there to smite him. And quite frankly, if he did see that, he probably still would have tried to have gotten out of the way. But he literally had no clue what was going on. How is that sin? I don't want to beat this too much because it's just a recurring theme, and at some point it gets tired. But it's this idea returned to over and over again in the text that sins are things so often that you had no control over and no knowledge of. I mean, if you think about it, I see where they get the whole idea of original sin, because the book is full of this idea that you can have sinned in ways that you have no idea what you've done. You did no act of volition. You did nothing with malice. You had no idea that you were doing wrong. You had no idea what was even going on. And yet this is a sin? That doesn't make any sense. Why was any of this soap opera even necessary too? So at the end of it, after he opens Balaam's eyes, and I guess now he's decided, okay, now we're not going to kill him. The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but speak only what I tell you to speak." Those were the same instructions that God gave to Balaam the night before. In other words, after doing this stupid soap opera with the talking donkey, the end result of it is carry on, just as we already said. What the hell? When Balak heard that Balaam had come, he went out to meet him at Ir-Moab, on the boundary formed by the Arnon, at the farthest point of the boundary. Balak said to Balaam, "Did I not send to summon you? Why did you not come to me? Am I not able to honor you?" Balaam said to Balak, "I have come to you now, but do I have power to say just anything? The word God puts in my mouth, that is what I must say." Then Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kiriath Huzoth. Balak sacrificed oxen and sheep and sent them to Balaam and to the officials who were with him. Again, that whole silly, stupid soap opera of the angel of the Lord and the donkey. Like, what does that illustrate? How does that even further your cause? I don't know. Balaam's first oracle. On the next day, Balak took Balaam and brought him up to Bamoth Baal, and from there he could see part of the people of Israel, which takes us into Numbers 23. Then Balaam said to Balak, "Build me 7 altars here and prepare 7 bulls and 7 rams for me." Balak did as Balaam had said and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Then Balaam said to Balak, "Stay here beside your burnt offerings while I go aside. Perhaps the Lord will come to meet me. Whatever he shows me, I will tell you." And he went to a bare height. Then God met Balaam, and Balaam said to him, "I have arranged the 7 altars and have offered a bull and a ram on each altar." The Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, "Return to Balak, and this is what you must say." So he returned to Balak, who was standing beside his burnt offerings with all the officials of Moab, 7 oxen and 7 rams just smoldering. Like that's a hell of a barbecue. Then Balaam uttered his oracle, saying, Balak has brought me from Aram, the king of Moab from the eastern mountains. Come, curse Jacob for me. Come, denounce Israel. How can I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce those whom the Lord has not denounced? For from the top of the crags I see him, from the hills I behold him. Here is a people living alone and not reckoning itself among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob or number the dust cloud of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright, and let my end be like his. Then Balak said to Balaam, What have you done to me? I brought you to curse my enemies, but now you have done nothing but bless them. He answered, Must I not take care to say what the Lord puts into my mouth? Another way that you could look at this too, which again just seems really silly, is if God actually wants to deliver this information to Balak. Why does he go through Balaam at all? I mean, I understand that if people are doing divinations and they want signs and they're burning all these animals on altars, that even a very involved God might say, I don't want anything to do with that. I'm not even answering that. But if you actually want to provide this information back to Balak, why don't you just talk to him yourself? Why is it that it has to be through Balaam and then you threaten to kill Balaam for following your orders? I don't know. Balaam's second oracle. So Balak said to him, Come with me to another place from which you may see them. You shall see only part of them and shall not see them all. Then curse them for me from there. Balak is what we call a slow learner. Balak rode the short bus. He's already been told by Balaam, hey, I'm not going to come do this thing. And finally, when he pressed, he's like, fine, I'll come do the thing because God told me to. And then he says, I'm only going to tell you what God tells me to. And then he gets this blessing for Israel. And he doesn't get a curse. And what does Balak do? He says, let's roll them dice again. So he took him to the field of Zophim, to the top of Pisgah. He built 7 altars and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. These poor bulls and rams, they're just dying for no good reason. Balaam said to Balak, stand here beside your burnt offerings while I meet the Lord over there. The Lord met Balaam, put a word into his mouth and said, return to Balak, and this is what you shall say. When he came to him, he was standing beside his burnt offerings with the officials of Moab. Balak said to him, what has the Lord said? Balaam should say, here's what my donkey told me. That would give everyone a lot of confidence. I'm going to go talk to my donkey and see what my donkey says, because apparently the Lord talks through the donkey too. But it probably wouldn't go good for Balaam's reputation if he said, I'm going to go get your oracle now by talking to my donkey. Then Balaam uttered his oracle, saying, rise, Balak, and hear. Listen to me, O son of Zippor. God is not a human being that he should lie, but he does lie all the time, or a mortal that he should change his mind. But he just changed his mind. He just did it. He just did it. He decided, go to talk to Balak. Oh, wait, no, I'm going to kill you for going to Balak. Oh, wait, no, now I'm going to let you go to Balak again. I mean, who reads this? Doesn't anyone proofread this stuff? Has he promised, and will he not do it? Has he spoken, and will he not fulfill it? Well, according to the Israelites, they would have a funny thing to tell you about that, because with the Israelites, they were promised to go to the Holy Land, but because they had the nerve to say that they were hungry and thirsty, they don't get to go to the Holy Land. Only their children do. So talk to me about all those promises that God speaks and fulfills. See, I received a command to bless. He has blessed, and I cannot revoke it. He has not beheld misfortune in Jacob, nor has he seen trouble in Israel. It says he has not seen trouble in Israel. Already, Yahweh has bitched incessantly about the people. So the idea that he has not seen trouble in Israel is a complete and utter lie. The Lord their God is with them, acclaimed as a king among them. God, who brings them out of Egypt, is like the horns of a wild ox for them. Surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, no divination against Israel. Now it shall be said of Jacob and Israel, see what God has done. Look, a people rising up like a lioness and rousing itself like a lion. So are the Israelites trans? Like, the people are rising up like a lioness and rousing itself like a lion. Are they gender fluid? That's a weird visual to put. It's a weird combination of words to put here. Rising up like a lioness and rousing itself like a lion. And by the way, rousing yourself sounds a whole lot like playing with yourself, but okay. It does not lie down until it has eaten the prey and drunk the blood of the slain. Then Balak said to Balaam, do not curse them at all, and do not bless them at all. But Balaam answered Balak, did I not speak to you, saying, whatever the Lord says, this is what I must do? So Balak said to Balaam, come now, I will take you to another place. Dude really does not learn quickly. Perhaps it will please God that you may curse them for me from there. I like how he says from there, like, well, from here, God blessed them, but maybe if we go to a different angle, if we go to a different mountaintop, then God will let you curse them. What? So Balak took Balaam to the top of Peor, which overlooks the wasteland. Balaam said to Balak, build me 7 altars here and prepare 7 bulls and 7 rams for me. These mountaintops have to be so bloody. These are just like butcher houses. So Balak did as Balaam had said and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Balak is just not getting things too quickly, is he? Okay, Numbers 24 is Balaam's 3rd oracle. Because 3 times is the charm, if at first you don't succeed. Now Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, so he did not go, as at other times, to look for omens, but set his face toward the wilderness. Balaam looked up and saw Israel camping tribe by tribe. Then the Spirit of God came upon him, and he uttered his oracle, saying, the oracle of Balaam, son of Beor, the oracle of the man whose eye is clear. Well, you say his eye is clear, but it wasn't very clear when he couldn't see the angel of God who was standing in the road to slay him now, was it? But okay, his eyes are clear now, I guess. The oracle of one who hears the words of God, who sees the vision of the Almighty, who falls down but with eyes uncovered. How fair are your tents, O Jacob, your encampments, O Israel, like palm groves that stretch far away, like gardens beside a river, like aloes that the Lord has planted, like cedar trees beside the waters. Water shall flow from his buckets, and his seed shall have abundant water. His king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. Balaam sounds like he's got a stiffy for Israel here. God, who brings him out of Egypt, is like the horns of a wild ox for him. He shall devour the nations that are his foes and break their bones and commit terrible genocides. Oh, okay, that's actually not in there. He shall strike with his arrows. He crouched. He lay down like a lion and like a lioness. Again, who will rouse him up? Who will rouse him up? Blessed is everyone who blesses you, and cursed is everyone who curses you. Then Balak's anger was kindled against Balaam, and he struck his hands together. Balak said to Balaam, I summoned you to curse my enemies, but instead you have blessed them these 3 times. Now be off with you. Go home. I said, I will reward you richly, but the Lord has denied you any reward. And Balaam said to Balak, did I not speak to your messengers whom you sent to me, saying, if Balak should give me his house full of silver and gold, I would not be able to go beyond the word of the Lord, to do either good or bad of my own will. What the Lord says, that is what I will say. So now, I'm going to my people. Let me advise you what this people will do to your people in days to come. That's kind of metal right there. After he gets berated by Balak for failing to provide a cursing after the 3rd time, he says, let me advise you what this people will do to your people in days to come. And this is Balaam's 4th oracle. So he uttered his oracle, saying, the oracle of Balaam, son of Beor, the oracle of the man whose eye is clear, again, unless he's about to get stricken down by the angel of the Lord, the oracle of one who hears the words of God, even when they come from donkeys, and knows the knowledge of the Most High, who sees the vision of the Almighty. who falls down, but with eyes uncovered. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. It shall crush the foreheads of Moab and the heads of all the Shethites. Edom will become a possession, Seir a possession of its enemies, while Israel does valiantly. One out of Jacob shall rule and destroy the survivors of Ir. Then he looked on Amalek and uttered his oracle, saying, First among the nations was Amalek, but its end is to perish forever. Then he looked on the Kenite and uttered his oracle, saying, Enduring is your dwelling place, and your nest is set in the rock. Yet Cain is destined for burning. How long shall Asher take you away captive? Again he uttered his oracle, saying, Alas, who shall live when God does this? But ships shall come from Kittim, and shall afflict Asher and Eber, and he also shall perish forever. Then Balaam got up and went back to his place, and Balak also went his way. I guess Balak finally got the message. Okay, so we're moving right along to Numbers 25. This is the worship of Baal of Peor. While Israel was staying at Shittim, the people began to have sexual relations with the women of Moab. You go, Israelites, you horny dogs, you. These invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. Thus Israel yoked itself to the Baal of Peor, and the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel. The Lord said to Moses, Take all the chiefs of the people and impale them in the sun before the Lord, in order that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel. And Moses said to the judges of Israel, Each of you shall kill any of your people who have yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor. Now, we've already seen this kind of crap so many times in Genesis, Exodus. So every time you hear this utter nonsense that God is perfectly just, I want you to think of this passage. And we've seen so much of this before, but still, think of this. These Israelites start messing around with the Moab women, and they start worshiping their gods, and that's bad. So what is the punishment? Of course, these people are going to be murdered. But on top of that, it says, take all the chiefs of the people and impale them in the sun before the Lord. Think about this. Imagine being a mayor of a small town and finding out that you are going to be impaled in the sun because somebody who lives in your small town did a bad thing. And therefore, we are going to impale you on a spike and leave you to rot in the sun. That is the God of perfect justice. Oh yeah, that's good stuff right there. And the other question here too is, why is it that once again Moses is doing the dirty work? You know, the Lord said to Moses, take all the chiefs of the people and impale them in the sun. How about you do your dirty work yourself? I mean, at other times he sends down poisonous snakes or he sends the plague. But then it's weird how sometimes he just decides, no, Moses, you do the dirty work now. I don't get it. Just then, one of the Israelites came and brought a Midianite woman into his family in the sight of Moses and in the sight of the whole congregation of the Israelites, while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he got up and left the congregation. Taking a spear in his hand, he went after the Israelite man into the tent and pierced the two of them, the Israelite and the woman, through the belly. So the plague was stopped among the Israelites. Nevertheless, those who died by the plague were 24,000. Now, keep in mind, this is Midianites we're talking about. If Midianites sounded all familiar to you, and if you've been following along this far, they should, it's because Moses's father-in-law is a Midianite. Moses's wife is a Midianite. But now, because these people had the nerve to start getting with the Midianite women, and I know that wasn't the real crime. The crime is that they are worshiping their gods. Now we're going to start running them through the gut with spikes. That is so revolting. And this is how you please God. So one thing was really weird. It says, so the plague was stopped among the Israelites. I went back and read this several times because I thought I must have missed something. It doesn't say that a plague started. It said that Moses is to impale everyone, but this time they didn't even bother telling us that a new plague started. I guess at this point, we're just to assume that anytime the people in general do something that pisses off God, here comes a plague. It's just assumed at this point. They don't even bother putting it in the text. And then to stop the plague, the cure for the plague was to find this Israelite with his Midianite woman and run them through the belly with a spear. And that's how you make God happy again. And notice it says, those who died by the plague were 24,000. Now, of course, we can't know anything about the actual numbers, but do you really believe that the number of people who were actually screwing Midianite women and worshiping the Midianite gods were a full 24,000? Or do you think that a lot of people died of the plague who weren't even directly involved in that nonsense? The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the Israelites by manifesting such zeal among them on my behalf that in my jealousy I did not consume the Israelites. In other words, I was deeply satisfied to see him run a spear through everyone's guts. Therefore say, I hereby grant him my covenant of peace. It shall be for him and for his descendants after him a covenant of perpetual priesthood, because he was zealous for his God and made atonement for the Israelites. So if you want generational blessings as opposed to generational curses, pick up a spear and run people through the gut. That makes God happy. The name of the slain Israelite man who was killed with the Midianite woman was Zimri, son of Salu, head of an ancestral house belonging to the Simeonites. The name of the Midianite woman who was killed was Cosbi, daughter of Zur, who was the head of a clan, an ancestral house in Midian. I don't know why they gave these names here. It's a little weird. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, harass the Midianites and defeat them, for they have harassed you by the trickery with which they deceived you in the affair of Peor. How did they harass you? You screwed their women. How is that harassing you? Because they let you sleep with them? That's harassing you? And in the affair of Cosbi, the daughter of a leader of Midian, their sister, she was killed on the day of the plague that resulted from Peor. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the last chapter of Numbers that we're going to go through today. We will pick up again next time on, actually, Numbers 26 is a bunch of descendants and clans and yada yada. So we'll be actually picking up on Numbers 27 in the next episode of God Free Bible Study. If I have screwed up anything, if God would like to correct me in any way, he is always welcome to jump in and correct, set the record straight at any time. What do you know? He ain't got shit. Okay. So God endorses this video. Thank you for being with me. Thank you to all my members. I appreciate you so much. I hope to see you on future videos. Like, subscribe, tell your grandmama, share this on your church bulletin board. Do whatever, just let everyone know. I always want more people, more viewers, more subscribers, more, because I'm an atheist and I hate God and I want power and I'm power hungry. That's what we do. Thank you for being here. I hope to see you on future videos, but until I do, lo, I say unto you, stay skeptical.